Good morning. You're welcome to another edition of Import Export Platform Facebook Live from 3 Tempest Trade Academy. My name is Dele Ayemibo. We'll continue our discussion on starting and managing export business. And today we are looking at part 54. And we are discussing We're looking at part 54 and we are discussing the principles that guide letter of credit operation. The principles that guide letter of credit operation. The principle that guide letter of credit operation. There are two principles that guide letter of credit operation. And these include the principle of autonomy and the principle of strict compliance. Two principles guide letter of credit operation: the principle of autonomy, the principle of strict compliance. What exactly do we mean when we talk about principles of letter of credit? We're talking about the guiding principles, the laws that guide letter of credit, such that if you are going to do a letter of credit transaction, these laws have to be obeyed. Now, if these laws are not obeyed, what will happen at the end of the day is you will have compromised the objective of what you are trying to do in terms of letter of credit. You need to know exactly how to go about ensuring that you do not compromise the principle, because all that you are going to do on letter of credit actually hinge or rest on these principles. All you are going to do on letter of credit actually hinge or rest on these principles. So if you violate the principles, there might be consequences on your payment. There might be consequences on the way that transaction eventually is going to go. So obeying the principles, following the principle become extremely important for you as an individual. Many are not even aware of the fact that letter of credit have principles that guide its operation. Many people are not aware of the principles that guide letter of credit operations. And the implication of that is you might find yourself violating this principle. For example, the fourth principle is called the principle of autonomy. What exactly does this principle set to achieve? The principle of autonomy. Autonomy is synonymous to independence. Autonomy is synonymous to independence. What that principle is saying is that a letter of credit, when issued, is independent of all the other all the other contract around it. You know, in a typical letter of credit transaction, there are different contracts surrounding that letter of credit, different agreements surrounding that letter of credit. Understand that there are different agreements on letter of credit will help you to be able to ensure that at the end of the day, you are able to avoid violating these principles. For example, in a typical letter of credit transaction, apart from another letter of credit itself is a contract. Letter of credit says a contract. Apart from that contract or letter of credit, there are 5 additional contracts surrounding it. Can you imagine that? Beat that. That for every letter of credit transaction you see, there are 5 additional contracts surrounding it. You know what this means? This means that the idea is the conflict in those agreements will not prevent the letter of credit from operating. Any conflict in those agreements, any violation of those agreements will not hinder the letter of credit from going on. And that is what the principle of independence suggests. The principle of independence says, under no circumstances should a breach in a letter of credit transaction, should a breach in any of the agreement around a letter of credit hinder payment on that letter of credit. Under no circumstances should a breach in any of the contract surrounding a letter of credit leads to violation of the letter of credit. What exactly does this mean? If the buyer ship rubbish to the seller, that will not be a basis for non payment. That a buyer ship and the good is shipped are rubbish. You can't say because of that you are not going to pay. Why? Why will you not pay? You can't say because the good that were shipped were not good enough. As a result of that, you are not going to pay. Now, when you do that, you are violating the principle of autonomy. You are violating the principle of autonomy. The principle of autonomy says, under no circumstances should a breach in one particular letter of credit transaction hinder the implementation of the letter of credit. A breach in the agreement. So can we examine the agreement? Let's do an x-ray of an agreement in a typical letter of credit transaction. So can we look at the people who can be directly or indirectly involved in letter of credit, who are obligated or not obligated letter of credit? We have the buyer and the seller, the importer and the exporter. Number one. The importer's bank and the exporter's bank. Number two. The confirming bank. So the importer, the exporter, the importer's bank, the exporter's bank, and the confirming bank. Typically, there will be an agreement between the buyer and the seller, the importer and the exporter. Typically, there will be an agreement between the buyer and the seller, the importer and the exporter. Agreement number one. For a bank to issue a letter of credit in favor of an exporter, there will be an agreement between them. For a bank, importer's bank, to issue a letter of credit on behalf of his customer, there will be an agreement between them. Agreement number two. Agreement number two. Agreement number two. Number three. If the exporter is being financed by his bank, there will be an agreement between the exporter and his bank. Agreement number three. There will be an agreement between the exporter and his bank. Agreement number three. If a confirming bank is involved, there will be an agreement between the confirming bank and the issuing bank, importer's bank. Agreement number four. An agreement between the importer's bank and the confirming bank. Agreement number four. If the confirming bank is a major bank like Citibank in the world, who is a banker of banks, a clearing out for different banks, there will be an agreement between the bank of the buyer abroad and the bank of the seller abroad and the confirming bank. Agreement number five. Agreement number five. So I'll go over them again. Agreement number one. That's the agreement between the importer and the exporter. Agreement number two. That's an agreement between the importer and his bank. Agreement number three. That's the agreement between the exporter and his bank. Agreement number four. That's an agreement between the confirming bank and the issuing bank. Agreement number five. That's an agreement between the confirming bank and the exporter's bank. Agreement number six. That's the letter of credit that left from the issuing bank through the confirming bank to the exporter, connecting everybody. Agreement number six. The principle of autonomy says that under no circumstances Should a breach in any of the agreements surrounding letter of credit cause that letter of credit not to work? Under no circumstances should a breach of any of the agreement around a letter of credit prevent payment on that letter of credit, because the letter of credit is an independent undertaking. Because letter of credit is an independent undertaking. Because it's an independent undertaking, on no account should a default by any of the other agreement lead to non-payment in the letter of credit transaction. This is a very important principle. This is a very important principle in the letter of credit transaction. A very important principle, a very vital principle, a very great principle. It's called the principle of independence. Now, let me tell you how serious this principle is. If you are an importer and you are listening to me, and you are importing goods from another country to your country, and the goods have arrived in your country, and you clear the goods, when you open the container, you were expecting a product. Let's say, for example, you are expecting rice, and you open the container, you see sawdust, you see waste, you see sand, and you rush to your bank and say, because the payment on that letter of credit is due 60 days, you rush to the bank and say, look, do not pay on this shipment, please. Look, do not pay on this shipment, please. The goods that were shipped to me are very bad. It's rubbish. The goods that were shipped to me is very bad. It's rubbish. Do not pay. That is the importer telling the importer's bank. The importer's bank will naturally respond, quoting Article 5 of Uniform Custom Practice. That article says, bank deal in document and not in goods. That article says, bank deal in documents and not in goods. That article says, bank deal in document and not in goods. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that means? Bank deal in document and not in goods. Bank deal in document and not in goods. Meaning, if anything happens to the goods such that the quality become compromised, if anything happens to the goods such that the quantity is having issue, this rule says, under no circumstances should a bank withdraw payment simply because the goods that were received by the importer were defective. UCP does not permit you to do that. Someone is thinking in himself and said, guy, this is a wicked rule. This is a wicked principle. Why will I be paying for rubbish? Why should the bank go ahead and pay for rubbish? I'm sorry, the rule envisage that people might become unscrupulous, and since no one was with them when they got the goods, they can put rubbish in the container, take the picture of that rubbish, and take it to the bank and say, can you imagine, look at the content or the product that was shipped to me. Most of the time, the bank will not be with you. Most of the time, the bank will not be with you when you are opening the container. So if you come to the bank and tell the bank the quality of the item in the container is defective, why should the bank believe you? Tell me, why should the bank believe you? What gave the impression that it couldn't have been you that changed what is in the container? unless you are able to prove beyond every reasonable doubt, which I doubt you will be able to do. So because of the inability to show that indeed this was what happened, coupled with the fact that the rule restricts a bank to only rely on documentary evidence to pay, you might not be able to stop that payment, even if you go to court and get an injunction. That will be a fraudulent injunction. The bank will go ahead and pay. Why? Bank deal in document and not in goods. Why? Bank deal in documents and not in goods. Why? Bank deal in document and not in goods. A typical banker in international trade love that statement. A typical banker in international trade love that statement. Bank deal in document and not in goods. Bank deal in document and not. You know, I'm saying it several times to drive it into your consciousness. So the question you should be asking me then is, if it is possible for an importer to ship rubbish and still get paid, and we say letter of credit is an undertaking that protects the exporter's payment and importer's money, how then should an importer protect itself? If that is the question you are asking me right now, that is a brilliant question. If that is the question currently on your mind, that is a brilliant question. If that is the customer currently on your mind, that is a brilliant question. You know why it's a brilliant question? It's a brilliant question because that question will let you now understand how to use letter of credit to protect yourself. How to use letter of credit to protect yourself. How to use letter of credit to protect yourself. How to use letter of credit to protect yourself. It's so important. It's so important. It's extremely important for you to know that in letter of credit transaction, you can protect yourself. In letter of credit transaction, you can protect yourself. In letter of credit transaction, you can protect yourself. But you will be able to protect yourself based on what you know. You will be able to protect yourself to the extent of what you know. This is why you should not use any trade instrument for your trade transaction without having some fundamental information and knowledge of how it works, of the principles, of the dynamics, of the rules. Three things. For every trade instrument, learn the principles that it stands upon. For every trade instrument, learn the rules that guide its operation. For every trade instrument, learn the dynamics from the beginning to the end. We're going to be discussing the dynamics of letter of credit later today. Learn the dynamics from the beginning to the end. Learn the dynamics from the beginning to the end. Learn the dynamics from the beginning to the end. Learning the dynamics is so important. Learning the dynamics is so important. Learning the dynamics is so important. So as much as possible, learn the dynamics. As much as possible, learn the dynamics. The dynamics of a typical trade instrument like letter of credit, demand guarantee, standby letter of credit is in 7 stages. A good understanding of each phase of these 7 stages become extremely important. Extremely important. It's so important for you to do that. It's not important for you to do that. Why? It protects you. So for example, as an importer, how will I protect myself? As an importer, number one, I will ensure that a third-party inspection company like FGS, Bureau Veritas, is present to inspect the goods. As an importer, I will ensure that a third-party inspection company like Bureau Veritas, like FGS, is on ground to inspect the goods, number one. Number two, I will also state the quality specification of the item to be inspected. The quality specification I would like to see on the item. I will also state the quality specification. I will also state the quality specification. I will also state the quality specification. Look, if you do not state the quality specification and you put in your LC quality and quantity inspection report, that's a waste of time. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of time. If you put on your LC quality and quantity inspection report and that's all you stated, anybody will issue that document. Even the exporter can issue it and the bank will pay. You just put there quality and quantity inspection. It's very important for you to know that in a letter of credit transaction, the three documents that the rule guide letter of credit knows who should issue are the bill of lading, the transport document, the airway bill, the roadway bill, the railway bill, which should be issued by the carrier. Number two, the invoice that is to be issued by the beneficiary, the exporter. Number three, insurance that is to be issued by an insurance company. Every other document you are demanding or requesting for on the letter of credit transaction, every other document that you are demanding or requesting for in a letter of credit transaction, every other document beside bill of lading, invoice, and insurance that you are requesting for letter of credit transaction can be issued by anybody if you do not state who should issue it. Can be issued by anybody if you do not state who should issue it. If you want SGS to issue it, state SGS on it. And also state the specification, the moisture content, the size, the length, the weight. State all the other information you would like to see that will show that indeed the quality of the goods shipped to you is in order. If you do not state it, the exporter will issue that document himself. It might be a fraudulent document and it will be paid. So to mitigate the risk of not getting rubbish and still parting with cash, with the bank hand ties and unable to withhold or stop or prevent that payment, please kindly ensure that you clearly stated in your letter of credit transaction that quality and quantity of inspection should be done, number one. Who should do it, number two. And the detail that they should inspect so that the bank will know exactly how to compare what you have stated in the LC with the document that is presented. So because this document you have requested for will be presented for payment and the terms stated on it, the quality stated on it must comply with the quality of your product. Sorry, we comply with quality you have stated on the LC. And that way, as an importer, you'll be protected from receiving bad quality, low-grade transaction. Thank you very much for listening again this morning. My name is Delayi Mibo. And this is Import-Export Platform, Facebook Live from 3rd Impress Trade Academy. Remember, we are still discussing letter of credit under starting and managing export business. I'll continue in the evening. In the evening, I will talk about the second principle, and that's the principle of strict compliance. I'll be talking about the second principle of letter of credit, and that's the principle of strict compliance. I'll be discussing that in detail by 6 p.m. Nigerian time today. Thank you very much for listening again today. My name is Dilayimi, but remember this video will go on our YouTube channel, 3T Impest YouTube channel. So we will implore you to do 5 things for us. Number 1, please subscribe to our channel. Number 2, share this video. Number 3, click the notification bell so you know when we post a new message. Number 4, drop your comment. Number 5, like the video. Thank you very much. See you in the evening and bye for now.